And that's something that's often missing in our chiropractic curriculum is how to run a business rather than just seeing people. You can't see people if you can't run a business.
Welcome to the Table Talk podcast, where we get real, meeting with industry professionals and experts in the chiropractic world, talking about the newest and latest, how to scale your practice, the struggles that we all face in practice, and how you can take your practice to the next level. All right, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I am here with a new friend to me, Dr. Parm Rai. Dr. Parm, welcome.
Hey, Dr. Kendall.
Hey, so Dr. Parm is a chiropractor in Langley, British Columbia. He was showing me pictures of the area that he lives in, and it is absolutely beautiful. He runs a primarily family-based practice, and he also is the founder of Lux Talks, which we're going to get into a little bit. And I actually have the pleasure of going up there and joining them this year for that. So, Dr. Parm, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, man. First of all, thanks for having me on here. It's lovely to be on this platform. And yes, we're brand new friends, I guess we could say, right? Which is
Yes.
awesome. I'm practicing in Langley, British Columbia. That's like 30 to 40 minutes outside of Vancouver, so not too far at all out of downtown. Graduated way back when at LACC, and I always make a little bit of a joke about that, the mecca of chiropractic. I was one of those anomalies that never got adjusted before they went to chiropractic college. I often asked a lot of people, I know it's an anomaly now because I've done enough speaking and talking to people that, that doesn't happen very often. The thing that really got me there was my dad and his success with chiropractic, even though I never got adjusted. And then we kind of worked our way up, figured what chiropractic was, even though I went to the Mecca, essentially understanding what true chiropractic was through different clubs, and especially Gonstead Club that really got me there. And then amazing old school seminar series like Parker. Practiced and I interned in America. I also practiced and got my license in England. So I got a good understanding of what practice is like in England. Very similar to what it's kind of like here in British Columbia. So I moved back to British Columbia, opened up our practice in 2006. And we just kind of took off from there. We did hit the ground running, which is great. I really attributed that to what I did in chiropractic college. So I always tell every single student that comes to shadow us is do as much as you can, absorb as much as you can, go to as many doctor's offices as you can, so you can understand how to run a practice, not just adjust people. And that's something that's often missing in our chiropractic curriculum is how to run a business rather than just seeing people. You can't see people if you can't run a business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've got two older brothers that are chiropractors, and when I was in college, I was shadowing, I should actually shout out to Eric Naputi. He ran a practice in St. Louis, very successful, very busy practice. And I used to go down there. I said, I think it was as much for the free lunches that I got in college that as it was to learn the business side. But man, it opened my eyes, and that's the exact same thing that I did. And so I can't underscore that advice enough.
You got a hunger for it for sure, and you don't quite recognize that while you're in school because it's like, yeah, sure, you see these successful practices, but if you don't sit down and talk to these individuals and understand how they got to that point, you'll never know, right? And like you said, you were flying or driving up to that place. Like I would drive from LA to Sun City, Arizona every bunch of weeks and volunteer my time at a massive Gonstead office in Sun City. It was Dr. Warlick at the time. Sit in the corner, watch him see patients. And my job was just, this is the day of before digital x-rays, pull those 18 by 36 films and put them up and then just stand and watch him do his thing, right? And I did that countless hours. So yeah, can't say enough about that.
So you graduated school, you came out, and you said you associated in the States.
Associated slash more of an intern type of situation
Okay.
for a few months just to learn and soak it all up. I can't say I had the official title of associate at that point. And then after that, I wrote the British board exams, which is not an easy feat. If you're not graduating from a British or United Kingdom college, you have to write those exams, and they make them very difficult for people from abroad to come in. So thankfully, I got through those. And then I practiced in Manchester, actually, at a Gonstead office up there. Really good experience. They put me up in a satellite office, which had zero patients. So it wasn't one of those associateships that you just roll on in and you start seeing people. In a way, at the time, it was a bit of a pain in the butt. But at the same time, it taught me how to build a practice not in my own office, which is the best way to learn. That's when I moved back afterwards. I decided I was going to open up there. But a buddy of mine said, "Hey, what would you like to do some cost sharing or whatever else and open up a practice together?" And we did that in 2006. And then a couple years later, I just broke off and did my own thing. And that's when we really took off is we were laser focused on where we wanted to be. And now, thankfully, I'm very blessed to say that we're one of the most prevalent or known offices in the Lower Mainland, which is great.
As you were, working as an associate, but ultimately building a practice, what are the things that you maybe didn't know then that you figured out along that process?
Don't hold back. Because a lot of times we think we know the chiropractic premise, we know how amazing the body is, we know the innate ability to people that you can heal. But it's just that funny, weird little thing. Like, again, as much as I felt like I knew the philosophy, I knew what, how to communicate that philosophy when you come out of school, I still graduated from LACC. You got to remember that, right? So you got that little thing in the back of your head too, right? Don't hold back. People want to hear it. We just get in our own way. We often think about what the people don't want to hear. Well, how about we think about what they want to hear? Because if you're holding yourself back from what you're saying or what you want to say, you're holding back your entire potential, right?
To me, what that sounds like you're saying is that you're looking for your people. Am I understanding you right there?
You definitely are, right? And that's who you attract. Yes, when I first, way back when I was saying trying to figure it out, we all had those patients. It was like, you kind of do the eye roll and you love them, but it's just like, like now there is not one patient that comes into our office that I'm doing that eye roll with, right? Everybody gets loved up. Everybody gives us love. Like attracts like, right? It makes a huge difference. And so don't hold back. You want to be part of that. You want to have that tribe as fast as you possibly can.
It's such good advice. And I think that there's so many chiropractors who just almost like starving. They talk about that starvation period that happens in a lot of practices, but I don't think it has to if you're doing the right things. Knowing what that sort of patient is that you want to see is super important, because if you don't understand what you're looking for with new patients that you want to serve, it can really make for an uncomfortable
Oh,
and kind of sucky day.
all day. Like in our office, we got a pretty substantial team as well, through from our CAs to our docs. So we've done exercises together as a team where we write down individually all the things that we want to see, what type of patient we want to have come through our office. Their lifestyle to heck, you can even say, their financial success or whatever it may be, their philosophy on life in general. So it makes a huge difference when you know exactly what you want. And then we gather that all together and we have it literally written on our whiteboard. We have that energy. We know what type of people we want in our office, and that's what we draw.
You guys do a phenomenal job on your social media. I spent some time on it, just looking at the things that your team puts out, and they do a great job. And I feel like you really speak to that, with the things that you're creating.
Yeah, we're trying to do as much as we can. We have to navigate a very thin line because being in British Columbia, I'm not sure if a lot of your people know this, but we're in the most heavily restricted chiropractic regulation jurisdiction in the world. It's pretty wild what we can say, what we can't say, all the way to your marketing material inside your office, let alone what you're saying outside. So, but at the same time, it just makes it that much more worthwhile when we do create those successful stories for our patients. So I appreciate the fact that you compliment our team. That a lot of that is my team, and I wish I could take credit for it. And they're awesome at it.
So speak to that a little bit. We know BC's beautiful. We know it's a great place to live, but being a subluxation based doc in a wellness practice, what are the things that you deal with that, maybe someone who's in the States or something like that doesn't deal with?
Essentially, they're actually trying to take how most of us have the NMSK, neuromusculoskeletal system. Well, they're slowly getting the neuro out of there. That's our big red flag as a subluxation-based wellness vitalistic chiropractor. That's a tough one, right? When your regulatory body doesn't want you to talk about the nervous system and just about neck and back pain and maybe migraines, not great. And so that's what we're dealing with. I know a lot of my amazing friends and colleagues in the States, when they're advertising whatever they may do, can throw in even for kids colic, or when we're talking about pregnancy in British Columbia, you can't even tell that you're going to help with labor. So it's all very much pain based.
What have you found to be, I call it my flea dip when I go to like DE or I go to like a seminar that's very philosophically based. Like, how have continued to, get that heart sense, that feel Like, what is that like for you?
Well, for sure, getting dipped when we're going to different chiropractic seminars, but that's why you see on my shirt here, I created Lux Talks back in 2018. Chiropractors are solo a lot of the times, or they get stuck in their own little world. And you're right. We need to get that. We need to get dipped. We need to be surrounded by ourselves with our colleagues. Lux Talks was created. It's a monthly talk that we do, or a get together, I should say. We focus in on one chiropractor. We'll ask a local chiropractor or someone that's from outside to be our lead speaker. But there's always time for social time in the beginning. We'll sit down and we'll learn together, and then the social after, right? Usually, I always laugh like the time slot is 7:30 to 9, but no one's ever left my office before like 11 o'clock at night. That just shows you how much chiropractors need it. And the purpose of Lux Talks is like creating a purpose and creating a larger community. And we started doing our big Lux seminars now. Our next one is coming up in October. We've got some phenomenal speakers. I know you're going to be coming up as well, which I'm excited about. That's how we remain dipped up here, because it's a hard situation. There's a lot of chiropractors that got pretty beat up here, me included, but we got to anchor to our why. Why are we doing this? And my why is just creating a healthier, happier community by restoring those pathways between the brain and body. It just makes complete sense to me. And I just hold on to that.
I mean, it's so important to stay in community. I mean, here in Chicago, we've got a group that we call COPS. It's Chiropractors on Purpose. And we do that through our state association. We do the same thing. We get together, we have dinner, we have a speaker. So Lux Talks, it's obviously grown. You know, you guys will get a couple hundred people at, the big talk, but tell me about the genesis of that and like what it's kind of evolved through.
We started as a small group where we get together, and it's a drop-in type of, well, it's RSV drop-in type of situation, but sometimes there's 8 people, sometimes there's 20 people. It really depends upon how many people were coming through and who's busy and who's not. Through that, we were able to create more traction and people understood why they needed to, because I often say that humans are meant to grow together, not apart. From that monthly meeting, we started creating actually smaller workshops. And then, like I was saying, the big Lux Talks. The genesis of that was I didn't intend to create a big seminar series. It was more so, this is cool. I got enough things on my plate and I'll just keep doing this monthly talk, and it's going quite well. However, there was a need for it. And I thought, let's just give it a go. Let's see how it goes. So we did our first one last year, and it was a pretty substantial number. We did it in our local hometown in Langley. So we kept it somewhat small, kept it 5 minutes from the office. We got some great speakers in, and it worked out really well. And one of the things I often said was that any fees or anything that came to Lux Talks, I don't keep. I'm going to make sure that I keep growing this movement, keep growing Lux Talks. And that's exactly what we did. So this coming year, we're going to be right in the heart of downtown Vancouver. It's pretty exciting, beautiful. It's a UBC Robson Square. If you guys look up the map, Robson Square is literally in the middle of downtown Vancouver. It's a gorgeous venue. It's going to be great. And like I said, we've got some phenomenal speakers coming through, including Dr. James Chestnut. We not only have chiropractors, but we also got child and family psychologists coming in, best-selling authors, and we're doing it 2-part. Friday afternoon, there's going to be a workshop type of situation happening with 3 different speakers, 3 different doctors. We want to make sure teams are there. And then the Saturday is just going to be a full-blown get dipped and go back to your office on Monday and get fired up.
I love what you're putting together, and I love that you're reinvesting back into the profession, subluxation-based vitalistic chiropractic, and you're getting out there and you're talking about this at other seminars. And so is this more of a spizz you up as well as the hey, here's some nuts and bolts sort of thing? What's your goal? What's your vision with this?
I would say it's going to be a very good mix of both, because we need both. Hard, okay, do this in practice, and let's build your practice. But at the same time, you do need that spizz, like you said, right? So it's not just going to be, that famous quote by Jen Temple. It's not just a jacuzzi experience. We want to make sure that you get something that you can go back to your office with your team and create change. But at the same time, to create that change, you need a fire, right? And we're going to light that fire. And so you can just, blow the roof off.
I love it. As you're doing this and you're looking into the future of what is your vision of what you want to see Lux Talks become, say 5-10 years from now?
Hands down, our goal from day one has been to make this the biggest event for chiropractic in Western Canada, if not Canada itself. There's nothing up here like this. I know there's a few things on East Coast for sure. There's population, et cetera, and there's a lot of other things going on over there. But there is nothing in Western Canada. The last time a big event happened was Parker, and they came here like I'm talking like 15, 16 years ago. And plus, it puts Western Canada on the map, right? Like Vancouver is a beautiful town. I joked about it in Chicago with the team. Like I've been to every single seminar you could think of when it comes to chiropractic. I've been in the last couple of decades, and every time I tell people I'm from Vancouver, like, oh, that place is great. I thought about going there. Well, this, like I said, this is your chance. Check out one of the most beautiful cities in the world. It's a win-win situation.
Tell me a little bit about, COVID and how that impacted your practice and, the things that you're doing. Tell me what that was like from your perspective.
Well, in BC, we were essentially forced to shut down. My practice was closed for a good 6 weeks or so. We weren't able to see anybody. Didn't matter. You didn't have a choice. You had to shut it down. And even when we were slowly reopening, the amount of restrictions and watchdogs that were happening too. It wasn't just like, oh, you can't do this, but there's a lot of, they were encouraging people to rat on people or whatever else you want to call it. It was a pretty wild time. As much as I hate to admit it, like there was like, I was going into work wearing gloves when you're adjusting or wearing masks and the separations and signing consents and everything else in between. It was a wild time. And at the same time, I was getting phone calls from other people thinking, well, how long are we going to be shut down for? People were stressed. Are they losing money? They're going to lose their finance. Like, are we going to lose our homes? Am I going to lose my office? Now imagine shutting your practice down. And some people were closed down for a lot longer. I started seeing emergency case patients. And so we kind of started from there. But for the average individual, someone that had to shut their practice down completely for 6 weeks, it just decimated people's practices. Depending upon how big your tribe was in your office and your patient base, that's where the tribe comes in, right? Because that's where people started flocking back. Like we were getting phone calls and messages on the daily, regardless of being COVID or not, saying, when are you guys going to open? I need to get adjusted. That's when you know you're doing something right. You got to take the positives. If you don't, well, then guess what? I wouldn't be practicing right now. Speaking of getting dipped, I started Lux Talks 2018, and I couldn't get on a plane and go to seminars or anything like that either. For a good, well, for those of you who don't know, Canada had the craziest restrictions when it came to flying and leaving the country as well. So didn't let that stop me. We started doing Lux Talks Zoom calls. So our first one was Billy D, which was awesome. Thanks to Billy D for doing that. And we had well over close to 100 people on that Zoom call. And it was amazing. So you can't let those type of things, regardless of how big or small it is, stop you. But like if you have a mission, you have a mission and you got to complete it, right?
We've got Lux Talks coming up in October. What are the dates?
So we're starting 20 on the Friday, which is the 25th. It's an afternoon session. So you could potentially still fly up, in the morning and do your thing if you really want to practice that Thursday in your office. So it's a 2 to 6 session on the Friday and then all day on the Saturday.
Awesome. And if people want to learn more about Lux Talks, they want to get themselves registered.
luxtalks.ca. Yeah, and you can follow us on Instagram. It's the same thing, luxtalks.ca. We're also on Facebook, luxtalks.ca.
So Doc, as we wrap here, I always ask the same question. What is something that you are working on now that you haven't quite figured out?
Great question. Even though we have this event coming up, even though we do Lux Talks each month, I struggle at times trying to figure out how the chiropractor's mind works. I know that's like the holy grail of questions there, but getting chiropractors, especially I would say in Canada, more fired up. What happened during COVID especially is that everybody got onto online learning, et cetera, and they just want to do their continuing education. Continuing education just doesn't mean credits to me. It means building your life and building your practice. And that's what I can struggle with quite a bit at times, is encouraging those or pumping or creating more excitement for the chiropractors in our community to get up and actually get involved. What we need to do is do. And the only way we can do is to get up and rise up and be together. And that is something that I do struggle with, creating that movement in our community. I don't think it's necessarily just to Canadian chiropractors. I'm sure that happens in America too, but it just seems like, unfortunately, with how much we've gotten beat up over the last number of years, it is a struggle to create more of a change in our profession.
Well, Doc, one more time, if people want to get a hold of you or learn more about Lux Talks, what's the best way for them to do that?
So that's just like it says on my shirt, luxtalks.ca. Shoot us a message, DM us on Instagram, start following us. We're putting lots of good content out there, creating more and more content every single day. We would love to have not only whoever's listening to this podcast, but our American colleagues and brothers and sisters come up here. It isn't as restricted or any restrictions at all at this point, so don't be afraid about that. And you'll get to check out our beautiful city, and I'd love to hang out with you guys.
Thank you so much for being on, and we look forward to seeing you in October.
Thanks so much, Dr. Kendall. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. We'll see you guys next time.
If you enjoyed this episode of Table Talk, a chiropractic podcast, make sure that you subscribe and check out the links below to our free Facebook group with chiropractic marketing secrets, our free resource guides, and the links to all of the guests that we have here on the show and ways to be able to connect with them. Thanks and God bless.